All right, everyone, who's ready for a retrospective on the greatest racing game of all time, F-Zero X? I'm Cody Lee, owner of BlackCatBooks.org and author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, King Dia, Lauren Frank, Grim Clover, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. And here we are demonstrating some, well, basically all of the F-Zero X tracks. This will be my retrospective for the game because I actually played this game all the way through to the end for the first time in like 10 years when this game was re-released on NSO. So typically what happened is that once I beat the game on N64, I felt no desire to like delete my progress or like start all over again or even really play master mode again. So in a lot of ways, it felt very fresh coming back to this game and kind of falling in love with it all over again. Weirdly, and I do mean weirdly, I do think this is like the one N64 game that I think really jumped up my personal favorites rankings once it got re-released. With most other games, I feel like we are kind of at the point where, although a lot of them were innovative at the time, a lot of them aren't like cutting edge anymore, and that really impacts their viability as entertainment properties. So Ocarina of Time, like, I love Ocarina of Time, it's one of my all-time favorites, but like I don't think there's any denying that Breath of the Wild is objectively better. Like Mario 64, love that game. There are things that make it kind of tedious to play, specifically in the end game. Like Star Fox 64 was outclassed by Zero in a lot of ways. You know, Wave Race 64 has, you know, awkward controls, not as many tracks as this. Like Mario Kart 64, just short, very easy compared to other games in the series. Like, a lot of the N64 games are like iconic classics that established their franchises, but a lot of them were outdone by sequels or even games from other developers. But I think F-Zero kind of distinguishes itself from that crowd because F-Zero X, in my opinion, has never been topped. Like, not only just in the futuristic racing subgenre, but in Nintendo racing games in general. Like, going back to this game again and seeing how much time I've put into it. This, like, random 1998 release on the N64. Like, seeing how long it took me to master everything, unlock all the characters, beat all the courses, and like even what I'm doing now with the time trials, how long it's going to take to like master that, or hypothetically to go back and like beat all the Grand Prix Cups with every single racer, all 30 of them, like when I could barely do it with my best character. That would be like a monumental achievement. Like, when I think of the amount of time I put into this game, like it's remarkable how it feels like it had to have been significantly more than what I put into Mario Kart 8, which I suppose would be my second best pick. And this game has doesn't have the advantage of online play. It didn't have the advantage of DLC. It didn't have the advantage of being released on newer hardware. Oh man, I hate it when that happens. That is one of my big pet peeves when you get flung off the course. One of the very few flaws with the game, I think, is that when you start getting good at it, you start running into issues like that. But yeah, generally speaking, I feel like this game is unmatched from like a gameplay department, from a track design department, from a mechanics standpoint, from like the viability of all the different cars. They all feel like they handle differently. They all have different weight to them. They all have like different stats. Like, there are so many different play styles and so many things you can do, and so many things that just kind of make you really appreciate what they did here. It is, I think, the ideal racing game. It is like the true hardcore racing game for Nintendo fans. It probably is the hardest game on N64. I can't think of anything else that I struggled with as much as this. Like Sin and Punishment, maybe, but that game isn't nearly as long. I don't think I put nearly this amount of time, and I would take that amount of time to get through like a hard mode playthrough of that. And I love Sin and Punishment, right? Like, this game is difficult, it's challenging, it's brutal, but it just keeps delivering every single time you pop it in, right? Like, each track is unique, it has its own unique gimmick, it has its unique focus. Like, every bump is like dangerous. Every turn could send you flying off the edge or slamming into a railing or just like slightly slow you down. It is a blast trying to like learn and master this game. It is, it has been, it was a treat going back and playing this again. This is definitely one of my new favorite N64 games. Honestly, I think I must have been too young to really appreciate this when it came out because it is very challenging for a kid, especially in like my age group. I don't even think I really beat the game on the easiest setting. I might have. Yeah, I think I did at one point. I beat all the cups on easy and then just called it quits and then came back as an adult, you know, doing standard, doing expert, and then moving on to master. It was like it was one of the most monumental achievements of my gaming youth, right? Like going back and beating all these like hard as nails N64 games that I could never beat when I was very young. Stuff like Diddy Kong Racing, stuff like Star Fox, Star Wars Rogue Squadron. I suppose Star Fox 64 like expert mode I didn't even have unlocked. Then you had this, which I think is like probably the most difficult of the bunch. I am over the moon about this game. Coming back to it was just an amazing experience. It really was just phenomenal. It's hard to really think of any any real problems with the game. Like I talked a little bit earlier about how easy it is to get flung off the tracks. I tend to suffer a lot on like silence. My play style dictates that I go as fast as possible. So like there's a twist in silence that can just send you flinging you off the edge if you hit it wrong, incorrectly. And I'm really bad about that. And every time I play the course, I keep doing it over and over and over again. I always remember it's there, but like just the way I play the game, it just results in you messing everything up. Yeah, so what we're doing here is the time trial mode, because I didn't bother with this when I was streaming the game. I was focusing on the Grand Prix. So, yeah, that 2 full days of my life I spent streaming this, of like trying to do all the doing all the cups and Grand Prix and all the difficulties. I didn't even do everything there is to do in the game, because in time trial mode, if you get a good enough time on these courses, you can actually unlock a staff ghost, which is brutal. I think harder to race, I think, than anything in the Grand Prix. And I have never beaten all the staff ghosts in this game. I think I did it with Mario Kart 8, at least like the Wii U version. But like with F-Zero X, I never got around to it. So I'm actually thinking, now that I've like cut back on buying new games, I'm thinking that like one of the things I want to do when I now that I'm going back to like older experiences and playing some of these older games, I think I might actually want to do the time trials, because I found myself really surprised at how invested I was in like trying to get the best possible times in time trial mode. I suppose that like time trial mode didn't appeal to me as a kid, but as an adult, like you can see the appeal of just trying to go as fast as possible with no need to worry about like obstacles or enemies or anything along those lines. You just race like as well as you possibly can. Like just not having racers on the track makes it a completely different experience. Expert mode really does feel like master mode, excuse me. Master mode really does feel like in a lot of ways you're killing enemies, killing your rivals more than actually racing. So I suppose that's another knock against the game. Like the AI does feel like it cheats a lot. You've if you see my streams, you've kind of seen it, like how they'll like just zoom ahead of you with no possible way of catching up. There are ways around that. The AI is very exploitable. On this course, for example, Big Blue, if you go like if you hit all the boosters and like swerve yourself around in just the right way on master difficulty, a lot of the enemies will throw themselves off the track trying to keep up with you. So that's the only reason I was able to beat this cup in master mode, because Big Blue is like my kryptonite. It is like by far my worst track. I'm terrible at Big Blue, but because I figured out that exploit, I was able to pull off a victory and win the cup. Even though I don't think I've ever gotten first place in Big Blue ever on any difficulty. I'm not bad at it. I don't remember being that bad at it as a kid, but like this playthrough really makes me feel like I'm not very good at this. Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite tracks in the cup. I just love like the curves leading up to the jump, and then like the jump itself, and then like the immediate aftermath. It's short but sweet. I really love this track. In general, I think like each individual track has a lot of unique aspects to it. It's not until like Joker, the Joker Cup, where you feel like they're starting to get rehashed and they're not all that interesting and they're getting kind of gimmicky. Like early on, you get like all sorts of crazy stuff thrown at you. You have like ice here introduced for the first time ever, which can really mess you up if you're not used to the game. Like you have this turn, which I really struggled with actually. Like playing it the second time around. I don't remember struggling with it growing up, but like when I was playing this, you know, uh, the way I do, like maxing out like your max speed and stuff like that. Like I was really struggling like hitting that turn. And like I eventually got the hang of it like after dozens of tries, but like it's one of those things that I never really felt like I struggled with growing up. So it's kind of interesting to think of that I lost that skill as I age. So yeah, the Jack Cup is pretty straightforward. Like it introduces you to the tracks. Like some of them are like pretty simplistic, but they all stick out in your mind. You know, like the first track, Mute City, I think. Everything's big, like incredibly large. You can't really hit the railings. It's just introducing you to the concept. And then Silence has like the high speed gimmick, and then like Sand Ocean has the tubes. So they're all like very straightforward, like easy to understand courses, but they're still like a lot of fun to race. Like they have a lot of things going for them, even if they're like beginner entry level courses. And like you start like you can see immediately how the track difficulty immediately jumps up once you get to Queen. See, so you see like these crazy turns. You have this narrow corridor. You have these twists. Like it's not a whole lot more difficult, but you can totally see how like it could mess up a first time player. Like this isn't Mute City, okay? You're gonna run into rails. You're gonna struggle, especially when you're actually competing against other people. It's a lot rougher than what you got in the first a track on the first cup. And like that is like a trend you'll notice as you go through these cups is that like the tracks do steadily get more difficult with each and every track. But like in a weird kind of way, in master mode, like as the tracks get more difficult, like it becomes easier to kill your AI opponents, and as a result, it becomes easier to win. It took significantly less time for me to beat King and Joker than it took like to beat me for me to beat Queen and Jack, which is just weird to think about. I struggled more with the easier tracks, but I suppose like I wasn't fighting the tracks themselves, other than like Big Blue. I was like struggling with the AI, which was just brutal. Like, ugh. I'm sure there are so many clips of me on my channel just freaking out over like just getting ruined by just some ridiculous nonsense. I maybe I should go back and pick up a highlight reel. Yeah, Red Canyon was one of my favorite tracks growing up. I love this. Again, for a kid, this one is very appealing because, like, I think one of the things that kept me coming back to this one as a kid, even though I could never beat it, was the jumps. I just love the jumps. This game has an unmatched physics engine because it makes you feel like you're really falling through the air and that you have to go like as fast as possible to like to keep yourself like steady and like stay on the track. And that was like extremely appealing to me as a kid, and it still is. But like, it's a big reason why I don't care for F-Zero GX because F-Zero GX does not, I repeat, does not repeat that feeling. I'm surprised it's taken me this long to mention GX because I have very strong feelings about that game. Most people seem to think F-Zero GX is like the best game in the series, bar none. One of the best racing games ever made. I very, very heartily disagree with that. Like the music is trash, the controls are trash, the tracks are trash, the story mode, like everything in it is just like garbage. I don't understand why that game has such a devoted cult following. The only thing I've been able to think of is that maybe people really appreciate the fact that Sega made a Nintendo exclusive. Like it feels like a Sega arcade racing game, and I maybe if you're used to that shit, like it's appealing. But to me, like someone who's always like had a disdain for 90% of Sega's franchises, like Sega arcade racers are not appealing to me. GX like was made by the same team, Amusement Visions, that worked on the Super Monkey Ball games, and Nagoshi, a producer, went on to make the Yakuza games. And out of those titles, I would say the best one by far is the original Super Monkey Ball. That's right. Like Super Monkey Ball is the only good game Nagoshi ever made. I love Monkey Ball. It's hard to believe that like I've only just played Monkey Ball recently because it's definitely now in my top one of my favorite GameCube games ever. Like it's weird how like I just never got around to playing it for so long. Um, because it's just kind of an obscure gem that kind of appealed to people who grew up with the NES and stuff like that. But like, playing it like for the first time and like what was it like last year or the year before, like was a wonderful experience. I loved it. It was the complete opposite reaction to what I had to GX when I played that for the first time, and I honestly couldn't grasp just why that game was as popular as it was. It was so terrible. Yeah, this is a really good example of a track that just kind of throws a lot of interesting aspects at you, like those bumps. This is the first track I think that kind of expects you to like leap off bumps. Like they're not supposed to be like jumps per se, like the one in Port Town, but like you can still do it, and if you do it right, like the way I do it, like you can get a lot of speed out of these. But it's also dangerous too. You have to be very careful. Like it really is the risk reward system in this game um, really needs to be considered like the greatest of all time. And I do think like the entire engine of the game kind of revolves around this because F-Zero X is a game where your health bar is tied to your boost. So as long as you have health, you can boost. But like every time you boost, you lose health. So the more you boost, the more you like run the risk of like taking too much damage and losing, which will completely ruin your run. All right, so you kind of have to like pick your battles, like when you want to go faster, and it is downright brutal, like how intense these things can get. Like it really does feel like the skill ceiling for this is like limitless. Like I'm sure there are speedrunners who are still like shaving quarters of seconds off of tracks today. It's it's a crazy system and one that I deeply value and appreciate. It's doesn't get enough credit, honestly. In general, I feel like this game does not get enough credit because I feel like the N64 in general had a lot of great racing games, like Mario Kart 64, Diddy Kong Racing, Wave Race. Uh, there was all sorts of stuff. Not even all from Nintendo. I would say, like in general, Nintendo 64 like dominated when it came to first-person shooters, platformers, and racing games. But like I think when it comes to F-Zero X, like there were just so many racing games that a lot of people just kind of slept on this one. I'm surprised considering how recognizable the game is, how it's not talked about more, honestly. Like, it really is, like, a great game, and people acknowledge it as being great. But, like, who else besides me calls it one of the best racing games of all time? You know what I mean? Like, why aren't there more people like that? It's just very disappointing to me. I don't know. I suppose a big part of it is the fact that it is an N64 game. That is something that really needs to be addressed. I feel like is that like the more I delve into the N64 library and like realize how good it actually was, the more I start to realize that like there were a lot of narratives being pushed against the N64 that just were not true right from the get-go. I think the big one is this idea that like the console was like not able to compete with PlayStation, right? That the games weren't as long and that they didn't have as much content. That just isn't true. Like other than like the RPGs, I think like N64 just stops PlayStation in basically every genre. Like if Eternal Darkness had come out on N64, yeah, that would have been better than Silent Hill 1. It would have been better than any of the Resident Evils. Like I don't think I don't think anyone would have contested it. I love Eternal Darkness, but it's just like when it comes to F-Zero X, I think a lot of people just looked at the PlayStation equivalent Wipeout or whatever it was, like declared that to be better, and then just kind of like ignored F-Zero. Because I do think like this is a game that really should have appealed a lot to people who lean more towards PlayStation. Yeah, Queen's probably not my favorite cup. I think I prefer Joker. I think I prefer Jack, and I think I prefer King. I think Joker is my least favorite, but like Queen's probably not far ahead of it. It just feels like the tracks are more difficult now, but like they're not the best in the game. Like I would say like indisputably the best tracks in the game are all on King. King is just full of great tracks. Ooh, I love White Steps though. I love Whiteland though. Like whatever that music hits when you hit those jumps at the end. Oh, I just love that. Like absolute Kino. This is not a track I hear a lot of people talk about. If I ever hear people like talk about like tracks in this game, for us it was like always Firefield and maybe Port Town, but this one is like a personal favorite of mine. I love this. Like look at this narrow, just barrierless walk driveway here, and then you have to jump up. Oh man, I love this. And like if you boost like while you're coming up here, you can actually fling yourself off. So it's a dangerous series of jumps. It's the game looks a lot the game looks a lot easier than it actually is, I think, because you're always going to see me. There were a couple of times in this footage that I actually flung myself off by accident, and I'm doing like time trial. Yeah, see, yep, knew it was coming. That's why I started bringing that up. I knew it. I was trying to set myself up for for embarrassment. Oh man, you'd have to be terrible to die on this course. But yeah. The game, the game is really difficult. Like it really is very challenging. Like to get the controls just right, to master like these turns and to stay on the tracks, it's just it's brutal. Like even without like AI racers, because like you're not challenging the racers really. You're challenging yourself. You're trying to like get the best possible time because like you have to get like as far as far ahead of the competition as you can, right? Like even if you don't get first, like if you get like second, third, fourth, or even lower than that, like if you get like in a high enough position, like you can take away the cup on Grand Prix. And of course, in time trial, you want to like go as fast as possible. But like yeah, the game has a very flexible point system where you get 100 points if you get in first place, and then you get progressively less as you go through the game. But there's so many racers, and there's so many like ways the race can end. Considering like the lineup and stuff like that, you're less concerned about the placement and more concerned about like whether anyone has more points than you. So what you end up doing a lot of times is that you end up singling out like a single guy, your rival, killing him, and then kind of trying to finish the race as well as quickly as possible. Like if you do it that way, you have more of a chance of like making sure the people closest to you or closest to number one are eliminated and get like 0 points, while you get a handful, right, or all of them, depending on how you place. It's an interesting system. Like it feels a lot more like it feels like it has a lot more of an edge than something like Mario Kart, right? Where you're always going to have people like finishing at certain positions. In this game, people can't finish at all. Like there are times where you can end a race and then like plenty of people have died and they just don't get any points. So that's very useful to keep in mind as you're proceeding through the your rankings and trying to like improve your skills. It's not about like getting in first all the time. It's about the points. So you don't need to win at every race or even any of them. Like theoretically, you can just like do reasonably well and just take out the enemies. Yeah, the curves in this, the turns in this course are insane. This drove me nuts as a kid. Oh, this was one of those rough ones. I think I struggled with the King Cup a lot more my first time through, because I remember like really getting excited when I got to the end and realized that I could really dominate Mute City 3, or is it Mute City 2? The last course in King Cup is actually extremely easy to dominate on the higher difficulty settings because of the way the track is laid out and how easy it is to wipe out your enemy. Same with Joker Cup, actually. It's a big reason why I took home the trophy so easily in those cups. Like the difficulty, the AI coupled with like the track design leads to a lot of easy kills. So I have like there were times when I was killing like 5 guys ahead of me. to try and get get in the lead, and that's very difficult to do. So it's interesting to keep in mind. Yeah, I've muted the audio for recording purposes, but the music in this game is downright spectacular. It's some of my favorite ever. Like I've had girls listen to the soundtrack and tell me it's like the greatest thing ever. People remember the music and they love it. It's like it's just the greatest thing ever. I even today I find myself like humming the tunes a lot. It's probably one of my favorite all-time favorite video game soundtracks, and probably gave me my love for metal. Yeah, the tracks get wilder and wilder as you go along. Hey, wait, why did I pause the game? All right, all right, keep going, keep going. Like, not all the obstacles kill you. A lot of them just kind of slow you down. There's those patches of brown that you see on the ground. Like those will just slow you down, but that could like really ruin your run if you're like being competitive, right? There are these hoppy things that can like they don't look threatening because they just make you jump a little bit, but those can like send you flying off the track if you hit them at the wrong angle. Like I remember hitting them like on Rainbow Road as a kid, and it infuriating me. Like I think the first time I ever did Rainbow Road, that happened to me, and that was just infuriating. Da, 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 da. That's probably not even the track that's playing right now. Ugh. So yeah, you have 30 different vehicles in the game, and my preference is to use Beastman. But I have like I did experiment with other cars in this one, including Black Shadow, who I've never played before. I remember playing as a kid and thinking he was kind of worthless, but I suppose if you're like playing aggressively and you're like really utilizing its size against like other players, it might be useful. I think like I had a legit shot of like using him on master mode at one point, but I just opted back into using Beastman because I don't like the idea of switching characters. Like I like the idea of just getting better with the character I picked and then like just kind of improving. I don't think Beastman is like the best character in the game, at least not anymore. But he's the one that like I kind of just selected when I was doing master mode, and I just kind of like decided that like, yeah, I'm gonna do it with this guy, and then like I kind of stuck with him, and I've done it twice with Beastman already. Never with any other character. I've never actually beaten master mode with any other character, which I think I probably should rectify at some point in the future. It's interesting to think that like after all this time with the game, I still don't have a very very complete knowledge of how it functions. Oh man, I hate that jump. Oh, damn it. Yeah, if you're going too fast on that hill, you're gonna fling yourself off. How many times did I die? Like I died on Silence, I died at Whiteland, and I died here. And like two of those three times were due to like those stupid jumps where you're just going so fast, you just throw yourself off. It's a pain, and there's no way to correct it other than to know where it's coming. Yeah, this was another favorite as a kid. It just kind of sticks out to you. It's Sand Ocean, but with only half the pipe. Right? So instead of like doing what you did in Sand Ocean, and we're just swerving around, you have to like keep your balance. Like you cannot let yourself just get thrown off here. So it's really tricky to get the hang of, especially if you're boosting. But it is very satisfying to pull off. Like I imagine this is one of the more impressive tracks to speedrun because of the way it's structured, and like how you can really boost your way through the entire thing, like sliding all the way. This footage isn't too impressive. I tried playing it conservatively, so I don't die again. I don't want to humiliate myself, but yeah, this was a great track. I've always loved it. Da 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 da. Yeah, I was getting kind of worn out when I was recording footage because I played through every single track to record them all in a single sitting, and I think that kind of shows in my gameplay because I was kind of tired at this point. I seriously considered stopping at King just so you got the impression of what the base game is like. But there is an additional cup, a Joker, and a randomly generated cup, X Cup, which honestly isn't all that much fun to play, to be honest with you. Um, so I decided to show those off as well. Yeah, this is a extremely easy course. I don't know what it is, but like I tend to dominate this course, even when I'm not like being super competitive, like playing on a higher difficulty level. I tend to like just do feel like I do extremely well. There's just a lot about it that like appeals to my playstyle. I think it seems a lot like a traditional F-Zero course with like no loops and no like completely flat with just nothing but turns and a lot of jumps. Yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Loop-de-loops was an innovation at the time. They were not present in the original F-Zero. Yeah, the original F-Zero, I did not grow up with at all. And like when people typically talk about the game, they typically bring up that one or GX alternatively. Like it's a big reason why I feel like this game is kind of ignored because like everyone I know of just talks about F-Zero or talks about this, and it's just kind of frustrating. It talks about this, talks about F-Zero, or talks about GX, and not this. When I think this is the game that kind of established the franchise as being a real heavy hitter in the genre, of just being like, this is the game that innovated on the boost gauge, that introduced loop de loops that like honestly just feels and plays a lot better. Um, like I think a lot of the early 3D games on Super Nintendo just did not play very well, and I think the N64 really established how 3D games should be done. And it's a big reason why that console is like should be considered the greatest of all time. With games like Super Mario 64, with Ocarina of Time, like Star Fox 64. Uh, they're all like extremely innovative titles that were like shunned because they were on that Nintendo hardware. All right, we're on Joker. Yeah, Rainbow Road. This track blew my mind as a kid when I realized that like it was the same exact course as in Mario Kart 64. Like same exact track. I don't know why they decided to reuse it. Like maybe it was an Easter egg or maybe it was just like a developer in joke, but they decided to use it, and it's probably better suited for F-Zero X honestly because they threw in some. They removed a lot of the barriers. The twists suit like F-Zero X better. I think they shrunk the track. It doesn't feel as ludicrously long as it does in Mario Kart 64. Um, like in general, this is probably like the best version of the track we saw until Mario Kart 8, in which they had the brilliant idea to only make you go around a single lap. It does feel like the track is smaller. Is that my imagination, or did they shrink the track for this version? It's like I swear, like the Mario Kart 64 version takes like what, like 2.5 minutes for a lap. It's something ridiculous. But yeah, this version is a lot more reasonable, and it's a good track too. Um, not crazy about the Mario Kart one, but it's a cool Easter egg. It's a cool gimmick. It's honestly like the first time I think I kind of processed the fact that like F Zero X and Mario Kart are made by the same people. Um, this might have been my introduction to like the wider world of Nintendo. Understanding that like all these different games were made like a single group of people, and like the shitty games that I didn't like, stuff like Batman Forever, stuff like Battle Tanks. I think it's Battle Tanks. Not no no, Battle Tanks is the good one. Like there was another N64 Tanks game. There was a Super Nintendo tank game that wasn't Battle Tanks. That I never remember the name of it, but it was like the worst thing in the world. And like I played it on stream before, but I can never remember the name of it because it's so unbelievably generic and boring that I've never actually like processed like what it actually is. It is ludicrously boring. But yeah, like this track is probably what really made me interested in like really understanding like what Nintendo was, that they do make different games for different people, that they do like have crossover appeal, that they do they're the ones behind the console and the games that you want to play and stuff like that. That's kind of a magical moment, honestly. Until Super Smash Bros, I don't think there's a very concrete way to kind of like for a normal person to kind of like piece together to like, oh wait, these are all made by the same company. Like typically you see the Nintendo logo on everything that gets released on a Nintendo console, right? Like the Nintendo CL quality was there for a long time, right? So like it might have been easy to assume that like these games were made by different people or that there was like some other nonsense involved, but no, like N64, Nintendo as a whole, like kind of established their brand name in spite of people not understanding that necessarily that like these games were made by the same developers. So like F Zero X found its audience, Wave Race found its audience, 1080 found its audience. Like all these different games, even in the same genre, just kind of coexisted in harmony. Oh yeah, yeah. This is a really good example of what I meant when I said that like the Joker tracks are trying to kind of generic. Because like, look, the backgrounds aren't as good. The music is stuff we've heard before, and the track itself is just uninspired. Like, oh man, you go along a mirrored version of the same track when you do a loop. That's incredibly boring. There's nothing interesting about it. It's not cool or charming. Like maybe you'll see like other people like moving along the track like above you, which I guess is kind of cool. But like for the most part, it's like uh, not all that interesting of a track. It definitely feels like with the Joker Cups that a lot of the a lot of the tracks were just kind of slapped together. They might have been like put together in playtesting or something, and then kind of deemed unworthy of the regular game. So they just kind of threw them into this additional cup. Like it's not all bad though. Like I think this one is pretty good, Space Plant, and I really enjoy some of the later tracks as well. I just think it's noticeable that they're lower quality than some of the stuff we've seen previously. Because I think today, like when you look at what Nintendo's doing with Mario Kart 8, like they're throwing out some wild stuff. Like some of that DLC in 8 was like insane. I played it like once. Not the old DLC, like the new Wave of DLC, Wave 2 of like the expansion of that DLC. But what are we even calling that? I actually don't know if we have like a technical term for it yet. Because I think we should distinguish between like the Wii U era DLC and the Switch era DLC. Well, I was playing like the new DLC, and I kind of it kind of dawned on me just how much more radically insane the tracks have gotten over the years. Like there are people who have spent like their entire childhoods playing Mario Kart 8. So like Nintendo knows that, and they're really cranking up the difficulty for some of these tracks because a lot of them were like really insane. They were really out there, and this just doesn't have that same spark. Now it's interesting to note. I can't believe I didn't notice mention this already. This game actually did get kind of a sequel with F Zero X DD. I don't know what the technical term is for it, but this game did get an expansion with the DD add-on, the disc drive, which was a failure in Japan. People didn't pick it up. It wasn't that successful. Never got released in America, and a lot of the games that came out along that time period never saw a Western release. So I'm curious, like, if we're ever going to get that game released in the West. I suppose for me at this point in time, that probably is like the holy grail of Nintendo lore right now. Because like Star Fox 2 was my first pick, but that's been released, so it might not be unreasonable to expect that we'll actually get F Zero X DD released in the future. Like that version, I believe, has like additional tracks. I think they're more difficult. It has a track editor. It has like a wide range of new features. It probably is the best game on the disc drive. Not that that's saying much. They only had like a handful of games. I actually, I'm not like well caught up on disc drive lore. I should like probably look it up. Just what exactly launched on that thing. But Yeah, for me, I think like F-Zero X is probably like the standout title of that lineup of games. When I did check, like years and years ago, it did seem like that was the only one that I would have an interest in. But I don't know. We'll see. My tastes have changed over the years, so maybe there's something I've overlooked or something I would be interested in. I mean, I feel like console add-ons were just kind of doomed for failure because like it just kind of locks people out of like additional content for no reason. Like you have to pay for a peripheral for like to access new content in the game you already know. That wasn't ever gonna fly. Like it wasn't cool when Sega did it, and it wasn't. I don't think the disc drive really hit it out of the park either. It's not something people talk about, but I just don't. I just don't care for that kind of thing. All right. Yeah, this is not one of my favorite tracks. Ugh. Like I said, like a lot of them are boring. Like, oh man, you go up and down a lot. Like, really? Like I think Devil's Forest did a way better job of like making wavy roads seem awesome than this one. This is another Devil's Forest track, isn't it? I think it is. Yeah, I think this is Devil Forest 3, if I remember correctly. I was not paying attention to the track names. I really should. Like I feel like a lot of times I just kind of like click on the track and don't really process like what it's called. Like I kind of remember my favorites at this point, but like some of the more obscure ones like kind of slip my memory. I think this is Devil's Force 3 though. Oh, it's Sand Ocean too. Okay, didn't look like a Sand Ocean, but all right. Okay, Port Town too. All right, two more tracks to go. Whew, I can feel my throat hurt. I did this retrospective to take a break from writing, but okay, here we go. Now this is like one of the good. I think it's all. I think the last two tracks are actually pretty good. So yeah, Port Town 2 is pretty intense when it comes to its turns and like some of the decisions they made. There's like kind of a weird jump in the middle of it, I think. No. It's a weird narrow tunnel. Excuse me. The jump is in the first Port Town. I'm just like, hang on. Am I getting my Port Towns confused? Okay, here, yeah. Lots of cool turns. Like again, it feels like a standard an F Zero original track, but like you get some cool aspect. Like it's just like a really real test of your skill when it comes to like just standard turns and F Zero tracks. I really like this one. Yeah, I probably should like do a list of like my top 10 favorite tracks in F Zero X, like I did with like top 10 Yoshi's Island levels and top 10 Donkey Kong Country levels. I probably should. I've been playing the game enough lately to do that, but maybe I'll do some time trials a little bit before I work on that. I've been considering doing some top tens again for a while now, but I don't know. I should probably do Donkey Kong Country 2 top 10 levels or something. I should look at my phone. I had a list of top 10 ideas that I was going to do, but I never got around to doing. So maybe I'll work on that next weekend. We'll see. Yeah, I played this track like probably hundreds of times, and I still struggle with it. Like you can see me like hitting the barriers, and there's like there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to my gameplay. Like even when I'm playing, I'm just kind of like, am I really? Is this really the best I can do? It really never feels like that's the case. So I really would like to step up my game and start being really good at this. But I don't know. Like I don't know. The game is like old as dirt, and I don't know. Let's one step at a time. Let's beat all the stab ghosts. I think. All right, last track. Yeah, Big Hand. Yeah, one of the reasons I appreciate this course is that like it actually looks distinct, and it actually has like some cool elements to it. Not the least of which is the fact that you have to take like such radical turns, like over and over and over again. It's surprisingly challenging actually. I mean, not so surprisingly. I remember being really intimidated by this when I first saw the track and like realizing that I would have to race this thing, and that there were like all these terrain things you had to work out for. It's not as bad as it looks. At least I don't think so. Like maybe back then I struggled, but like much like Mute City 3, I kind of dominate this track. Like again, it's everything I'm good at. Like lots of sharp turns, lots of straightaways. Like that's stuff I really excel at in F-Zero. Like I don't know, once you get like the general shape of the hand down, it's kind of hard to make mistakes, honestly. Like you can see the turns coming, and like you know just how sharp they are. Like it just looks a lot worse than it actually is. I don't know, maybe for a first time player I struggled. I'm trying to remember if I struggled with this the first time I played it, and I don't know. I remember like struggling with the Grand Prix like both times I played it, but I don't know. That's true for most tracks, I think. Like this is like this and like the last one in King, Mute City 3. Like I remember very clearly when I did those for the first time because like I was like really down to the wire, like pushing myself to my limit to like beat these tracks and like get a good score, and I pulled it off, and it was just so satisfying to do. Yeah, that ice there just was the one thing I think that really messed me up. Like when I first played it, I think it wasn't a big problem on my replay playthrough, but like, yeah, the ice was just the worst. I don't know, like even just watching footage of my own gameplay footage, this game just makes me happy. It really does, and I think that's like the mark of a true game is that that I can spend like 40 minutes just sitting here bullshitting about it while I watch like footage of myself playing it. It's just, oh, damn. What a great game! What a masterpiece! If I didn't like really emphasize that enough during my commentary, yes, this game is a masterpiece. It is one of the best games ever made. It is super underrated. Like people like this game a lot, but I don't think people praise it enough. Honestly, like especially after this most recent playthrough, I'm just over the moon about this game. It is just it really is one of the best there is.